Hello and welcome to Spokane Buddhist Temple's virtual service. My name is Amanda Goodwin and I will be your MC. Your doshi for today's service will be Reverend Melissa Opal. Before we begin, please know that we will be muting your mics. It's recommended that you turn your camera off and switch your viewing mode to speaker view. To do this, go to the upper right-hand corner of your screen and you should see View where you can choose Speaker View. We do live stream our services to Facebook, so if you would not like your picture or name shown, please take that into account and update it accordingly. Today, we're observing Shotsuki Hoyo, and after service, we'll also have some time for socializing and discussing the Dharma talk that we hear. Please stay to enjoy that with us. If you have ideas for topics or questions on anything, go ahead and put them in the chat so that they're available afterwards. Melissa will lead our opening chant, which is the Shi Shin Rai. The Shi Shin Rai can be found on page 28 in the service book. If you do not have your own service book, I'll share my screen here for you. Thank you.
Shi Shin Kei Namo Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, 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 namandats.
We will now read the Golden Chain number 1 on page 15. I am a link in Amida's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I will keep my link bright and strong. I will be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will think pure and beautiful thoughts, say pure and beautiful words, and do pure and beautiful deeds. May every link in Amita's golden chain of love be bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Please turn to page 14 for the reading of the Ryogimon number 1. Together, please. We rely upon Tathagata Amitabha with our whole heart for the enlightenment in the life to come, abstaining from all sundry practices and teachings, and giving up the trust in our powerless self. We believe that the assurance of our rebirth comes at the very moment we entrust and we call the name Namo Amida Butsu in happiness and thankfulness. We also acknowledge gratefully the benign benevolence of our founder and the succeeding masters who have led us to believe in this profound teaching, and we do now endeavor to follow throughout our lives the way laid down for us. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandabs, namandabs, namandabs. The Suture Chant this morning will be the Sambutsuge on page 79.
Kogen gigi ijin mugoku nyozen myo muyo tosha nichigaten mani shukoen yo kai shiten onpe yun yaku jumoku nyorai yogen Chose Murin Shogaku Daion Koru Jipo Kaimon Shojin Sanmai Chie Itoku Muryo Shusho Keiyu Jintai Zenen Shobuten Hokai Kujin Jin no Kugo Gai Tai Mumyo Yokunu Se Son Yomu Ninyo Shishi Jin Toku Muryo Kukun Kodai Chie Jin Myo Komyo Iso Shindo Daisen Ganga Sabuten Zai Shoho Kado Shoji Mi Fuge Daten Fu Se Joi Kainin Shojin Nyoze San Mai Chie Ijo Gose Tokubuten Fugyo Shigan Isai Kuku Esai Dayan Keshi Ubuten Hasen Nokuman Muyo Dai Shoshu Nyogoja Kuyo Isai Shito Shobuten Funyo Gudo Kensho Fugyaku Hinyo Goja Shobuten Saikai Bufukage Mushu Setendo Komyo Shisho Henshi Shokoku Nyose Shojin Ichin Nanyo Yoga Sabuten Kokudo Daiichi Koshu Kimyo Dojo Shozetsu Koku Nyo Nayon Nimu Doso Godai min donaten isai jiporai sho shinneten shojo ito ga koku kiraku anon 고분 신묘 지가 신쇼 호튼간노 힘히 리키쇼쇼 야쿠지 포세손 시에 무게 조여시손 싱아 신교 계려 신시 쇼크도크슈 강요 쇼지 민주프케 나만다부 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 나니시쿠노쿠 묘로세이사이 놈스모나이시 온조 라코 Namo Mirabutsu. Namo Mirabutsu. Namo Mirabutsu. Namandats, 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 namandats.
Today's Dharma talk will be given by Minister's Assistant Chad Donahoe.
Please join me in Gasho. The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. Good morning. So I'm sure many of you have noticed that we seem to become polarized. Everyone seems to be in one camp or another and unable to see the other side as anything but wrong. How can we bridge this gap and come to an understanding? One possible way is the forgiveness practice. Buddhism offers specific teachings and practices for the development of forgiveness. Like the practice of compassion, forgiveness does not ignore the truth of our suffering. Forgiveness is not weak. It demands courage and integrity. Yet only forgiveness and love can bring about the peace we long for. We have all betrayed and hurt others, just as we have knowingly or unknowingly been harmed by them. It is inevitable in this human realm. Sometimes our betrayals are small, sometimes terrible. Extending and receiving forgiveness is essential for redemption from our past. To forgive does not mean we condone the misdeeds of another. We can dedicate ourselves to make sure they never happen again. But without forgiveness, the world can never be released from the sorrows of the past. Someone once said, forgiveness means giving up all hope for a better past. Forgiveness is a way to move on. In Buddhism, forgiveness is not presented as a moral commandment. Thou shalt forgive. It is understood as a way to end suffering, to bring dignity and harmony to our life. Forgiveness is fundamentally for our own sake, for our own mental health. It is a way to let go of the pain we carry. So I'd like to read from an op-ed written by Representative John Lewis on the death of George Wallace that I think illustrates the power and purpose of forgiveness. Remember, these are his words, not mine. So, growing up in rural Alabama during the 1950s, it was hard not to know who George Wallace was. Mr. Wallace, first as a circuit judge and then as governor, fought the civil rights movement with every fiber of his being. He was a demagogue whose words and actions created a climate that allowed for violent reprisal against those seeking to end racial discrimination. As one of the leaders of the civil rights movement, I remember that George Wallace well, but the George Wallace who sent troops to intimidate peaceful, orderly marchers in Selma in 1965 was not the same man who died this week. With all his failings, Mr. Wallace deserves recognition for seeking redemption for his mistakes, for his willingness to change and to set things right with those he harmed. Rarely does our country witness such a conversion by an elected official. Such a conversion of principle can be shaped only by courage and conviction. I will never forget Mr. Wallace's inaugural address as governor in 1963. Looking defiant, he declared segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. That day, my heart sank. I knew his defense of states' rights was really a defense of the status quo in Alabama. Mr. Wallace used the language of rage and hate to rise to power and to become a force in national politics. Staring down federal officials, he told every Black American that he or she was not welcome at the University of Alabama. The Alabama of the 1950s and 1960s was a turbulent place. African Americans were seeking to desegregate restaurants, bathrooms, and buses, and to secure the right to vote. Governor Wallace and his allies drew in every available resource to stem the tide of progress. A showdown was inevitable. Much of the bloodshed in Alabama occurred on Governor Wallace's watch. Although he never pulled the trigger or threw a bomb, he created the climate of fear and intimidation in which those acts were deemed acceptable. Although we had long been adversaries, I did not meet Governor Wallace until 1979. During that meeting, I could tell he was a changed man. He was engaged in the campaign to seek forgiveness from the same African Americans he had oppressed. He acknowledged his bigotry and assumed responsibility for the harm he had caused. He wanted to be forgiven. The very essence of the civil rights movement was its appeal to the conscience of those who beat us with batons, attacked us with dogs, and stood defiantly at the schoolhouse door. We wanted our enemies to know that every blow they struck was a blow against another human being. The bloodshed that resulted was the blood of all humanity. When I met George Wallace, I had to forgive him, because to do otherwise, to hate him, would only perpetuate the evil system we sought to destroy. George Wallace should be remembered for his capacity to change, and we are better as a nation because of our capacity to forgive and to acknowledge that our political leaders are human and largely a reflection of the social currents in the river of history. Whether at the bridge in Selma, at a bombed church in Birmingham, or on the schoolhouse steps, George Wallace and I were thrust together by fate, by our personal conviction and principle, and by what I like to call the spirit of history. The civil rights movement achieved its goal in the person of Mr. Wallace, because he grew to see that we as human beings are joined by a common bond. I can never forget what George Wallace said and did as governor, as national leader, and as a political opportunist. But our ability to forgive serves a higher moral purpose in our society. Through genuine repentance and forgiveness, the soul of our nation is redeemed. George Wallace deserves to be remembered for his effort to redeem his soul, and in so doing, to mend the fabric of American society. So John Lewis was able to forgive George Wallace, and he showed that the work of forgiveness is a process. Practicing forgiveness, we may go through stages of grief, rage, sorrow, fear, and confusion. As we let ourselves feel the pain we still hold, Forgiveness comes as a relief, a release for our heart in the end. Forgiveness acknowledges that no matter how much we may have suffered, we will not put another human being out of our heart. The practice of forgiveness grows through generosity and repetition. Forgiveness practice is about liberating your own feelings and finding meaning in the worst of life's events. You practice forgiveness to be free of the inner violence of your rage, and you do not abandon the pursuit of right action. In fact, you gain clear seeing that allows you to use skillful means in bringing sustainable peace. So you practice forgiveness for your own sake, to not be locked in anger, fear, and resentment. Resentment, whether cold fury or smoldering rage, hardens your emotions, narrows your options in responding to life, and shifts your attention from those who matter to you the most to those whom you disdain. Why would you choose to live in this manner? It gives those who wronged you an even greater victory than their original act. You also embrace forgiveness practice as an act of selflessness, something that you can do to stop the seemingly endless cycle of hatred in the world. The Buddha said, hate never yet dispelled hate, only love dispels hate. By holding the truth of our interdependency and refusing to participate in this endless cycle of hatred, you can help to heal the wound of the world. When a life has been lost or great physical or mental damage done, there is no going back. There is only going forward. If you hold on to a personal claim because of what you lost, you assume the identity of the victim. It may seem right and proper, but oftentimes it is just another form of self-imprisonment. When you suffer a great loss, you are entitled to feelings of loss and to ask for and expect redress. But there is no entitlement for revenge, no right to hate, and no right to think your grief, loss, and confusion are unique or entitle you to torture another. To meet hatred and loss with love and a generous heart is the most difficult practice imaginable. It requires humility to surrender to the mystery of life, its unpredictability. It requires an equal amount of courage to face life's losses and be willing to say, this too is life, and bear it as you find it, even while doing everything in your power to change it into a gentler, safer experience. The spiritual practice of forgiveness, along with compassion and love, is the most powerful ground you can prepare for the future well-being of today's children. If they see you violent in thoughts, words, and actions, they will learn violence as a reaction, no matter what you tell them. But if they see you meet hate with love, they will manifest this as adults. To repeat the Buddha, hate never yet dispelled hate. Only love dispels hate. Please join me in Gasho. The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad, for a wonderful Dharma talk. We will now read the Threefold Refuge on page 10, led by Reverend Opal.
Difficult is it to receive a human form. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the Dharma of the Buddha. Now we hear it. If we do not cross over to the truth in the present life, in what life shall we cross over? Let us with sincerity and true reverence take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we, together with all sentient beings, awaken to the great way of enlightenment and to the unsurpassed intent of Amida Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we, together with all sentient beings, enter the storehouse of the Dharma, becoming like the wisdom ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we, together with all sentient beings, become units in true accord, in harmony with all things. The peerless, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rare to encounter, even in many hundreds and thousands of kalpas. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of the Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, namandats, namandats.
Now we will begin our Shotsuki Hoyo observance with Sean Bolts to read the names for March.
Today we will be observing Shotsuki Hoyo for the month of March. Shotsuki Hoyo is an opportunity to remember our deceased friends and family and to express our gratitude for the many ways their actions have continued to support and benefit our lives. From the letter from White Ashes from Renyo. When I deeply contemplate the transient nature of human life, I realize that from beginning to end, life is impermanent like an illusion. We have not yet heard of anyone who lived 10,000 years. How fleeting is a lifetime? Who in this world today can maintain a human form for even 100 years? There is no knowing whether I will die first or others, whether death will occur today or tomorrow. We depart one after another more quickly than the dewdrops on the roots or the tips of the blades of grasses. So it is said. Hence, we may have radiant faces in the morning, but by evening we may turn into white ashes. Once the winds of impermanence have blown, our eyes are instantly closed and our breath stops forever. Then our radiant face changes its color, and the attractive countenance, like peach and plum blossoms, is lost. Family and relatives will gather and grieve, but all to no avail. Since there is nothing else that can be done, they carry the deceased out to the fields, and then what is left after the body has been cremated and is turned into the midnight smoke is just white ashes. Words fail to describe the sadness of it all. Thus, the ephemeral nature of human existence is such that death comes to young and old alike without discrimination. So we should all quickly take to heart the matter of the greatest importance of the afterlife, and trust ourselves deeply to Amida Buddha and recite the Nimbutsu. You may not recognize the names being read on the list today, but know that you have benefited from their life, as they have either contributed to the physical space of the temple, the teachings of Jodo Shinshu and Amida Buddha, or the people that are here today. When the sadness of losing a loved one begins to ease, we are able to think on their life and how they have impacted us. When a person dies, we are all affected. A part of all of us is taken. We must understand our own death, and when we do, we will find relevance in the passing of others. Sean will now read the names for the month of March. After Sean has read the names, we'll have some silent sitting, and we will also take refuge in the three homages. Sean.
Oh, that's annoying. Okay. Eileen Kyoko Tanaka. Marceline Burdette. Iku Horirichi. Soichi Kayahara. Mrs. Asano Kirihara. Charlie Nakanishi. Yoshito Norisada. Joe Takeshita. Toshiko Ueno. Bruce Jeriel Waters. Robert Cole Pierce. Jeffrey Lee Pierce. Fumi Hara. Gracie Hattori. Kengo Kato. Mrs. Taeko Kayahara. Mrs. Kyo Osumi. Mrs. Marguerite Peterson. Kuhei Tsuchida. Kana Yamamoto. George Hayamoto.
Although I might not know you as well, in one sense I have always known you, through true and real life that follows in you and me and everyone around us. Because of this true and real life, I love you deeply as I love myself. Please join me in repeating the three homages. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandatsu. This now concludes our Shosuki Hoyo for the month of March.
Thank you, everybody, for attending today's virtual service. As an all-volunteer Sangha, we truly appreciate all donations and efforts. Without your continued support, we could not do such things as assist with continuing education or provide a place for all to come and listen to the Dharma. Although we cannot meet in person, many volunteers continue to maintain our temple and keep it functioning so that when we are able to meet again, the space will be ready. If you would like to donate, you can do so by sending a check to the temple at 927 South Perry Street or via the link on our website. And please feel free to email the temple if you have any further questions. We're going to have a few short announcements. If you didn't have a chance to submit them, you can put them into the chat box and we'll try to get to you. I believe we're going to have our moment of quiet sitting before that, Melissa. I might have rushed us through that. So we'll go into a few moments of quiet sitting and then the announcements.
Celeste has an announcement.
Hi, everyone. As we've mentioned in the past, we've got a temple rummage sale coming up on May 15th. So keep in mind that and start going through your closets. Now, yesterday I was there at the temple from 9 to 11. And we had that set up that we would do that every 2 weeks so that people could bring their stuff in. But I got kind of lonely yesterday morning. No one was there, or no one showed up. So I think what we'll do is wait till we get a little closer to the May 15th date of our rummage sale before we open, or in order to have a Saturday time for you to drop off your stuff. Or if you would like, you can just contact me by email and I can meet you there at the temple just about any time that's convenient for both of us. So I'll just put my email here in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
So those that were interested in dropping some items off, make sure to write down Celeste's email so you can get a hold of her so that she's not hanging out at the temple all lonely. That's just sad. And I think, temple-wise, we don't really have anything else going on. We have been getting some questions about when we'll resume services, and we're looking to, weather pending, to potentially do some outdoor services starting in April. But still no intention of coming back into the building at this time, and we'll keep you posted as that changes. Otherwise, please continue to go to the bca.org to look at the different offerings that they're having for classes. Those are either free or by donation if you're able to afford it. And they have information on how you can donate. And then otherwise, we'll just kind of keep you guys posted. And don't forget, if there's certain topics that you want to discuss either today or in the future for our discussion time, you can put those in the chat box, or you can email those to myself or just directly to the temple. Amanda?
Are we having Oshoko? Or did we already have that with Shoski Hoyo? Sorry, I'm getting us all offline today.
Yeah, normally we would do the quiet sitting now, but we've already done it. So
All right.
we have quietly sat.
Okay, cool. I think that's all I have to say then before we go into socializing.
All right, so for those that are joining us online, this is going to conclude service. So I'm going to say goodbye to you now. Thank you for joining us, either if you're joining us presently or it's a future goodbye. And then for those that want to stick around for discussion, please do so.